All right, guys, great fight last night between Boots Ennis and Xander Zayas. Definitely a fight of the year contender, if not fight of the year. You can't tell that this early in the year. It's still in June what fight of the year is, but as of now, that's certainly fight of the year and definitely round of the year. One of the best rounds I've seen in a long time, mainly because it looked like Boots was done. It looked like, really, for a minute. We found out today that not only can Boots get rocked, Boots can lose. And Boots isn't necessarily a defensive fighter, right? He, of course, has a defensive skill set. He's even a fighter whose game is, built from his defensive skill set out, like most fighters, sure, but that doesn't make him a fundamentally defensive fighter in the realm of somebody like Floyd or even like Timothy Bradley, for example. He's a knockout fighter. He is somebody who's looking to get the knockout. He's somebody who's looking to get the finish. We know this, the similarity I made in my preview video to Terrence Crawford is commonly made with Boots Ennis, not just because of his switching stances, but because of how he tends to calculate, download information, and calculate leading to the finish. He didn't really have an opportunity to do that in this fight. Like I said, I predicted this. Zayas was going to, lead with his ego, lead with his pride as a 23-year-old unified world champion, fighting somebody coming up into his weight class who's been undisputed at lower weight classes and has this feared reputation both as a defensive fighter, an undefeated fighter, and a great power puncher coming up into your division. I knew that Zayas was going to get, lulled into this trap of, like he said, Boots Ennis is there to hit, and I predicted that Zayas was going to try to bowl right through Boots Ennis, and that's exactly what we saw him try to do, and it got him knocked down in the first round, and he just kept right with the quote-unquote game plan. Not really a game plan, but he just kept going with it, and to his credit, Xander Zayas, it gave us that round 3. It gave us this round of the year, this fight of the year, and that unbelievable moment where it looked like Boots Ennis was going to lose for the first time in his career. That really is going to redefine, I think, the way that a lot of people see Boots Ennis, because a lot of boxing fans have been trying to sort of put Boots Ennis into one of our, predetermined categories that we like to throw fighters into for a very long time. Of course, he's a black American fighter with an undefeated record, so people always tend to see him as defensive or want to see him as a defensive fighter. Dude, he's not that. Sorry, that's not who he is. He's a knockout artist, he's a KO puncher, and he's a power puncher, really above everything else. And the reason why I think power puncher would be the best term for Boots Ennis, which is an interesting way to describe like a boxer. Like, okay, Mike Tyson was a power puncher, Boots Ennis is nowhere near that. The reason I say power puncher is probably the best term is because his whole thing is about getting the most power per punch, I feel like, right? Not only in the timing and the location of the punches, but in the power of the punches themselves. But it is really that timing, right? It's the timing that unifies everything and that brings everything together with Boots Ennis and that makes everything great and that made the difference in this fight. If Boots Ennis didn't have his timing, those fight-changing shots, the knockdown in round 1, the fight-changing shots in round 3, 4, the knockdown in round 5, and the knockout, none of those happen, right? None of those happen. This is a fight that goes way more for Xander Zayas. It's all about the timing and the precision with Boots. Timing, precision, power. He has all 3 of those on Zayas. It was always a fool's errand, right, for Zayas to come in here and think that he could win this fight going toe-to-toe, and he almost did, right? And you have to give him so much credit for that. So this is a career-boosting fight, in my opinion, for both men. Both these guys are under 30 years old. They both have potential to move up in the future. They've both been prodigies since they were very, very young. Heck, this is even a fight that maybe, depending on how Xander Zayas does in the future, you could see rematched, far into the future, I think. But for a knockout loss, that's about as much of, a stock boosting win as you're going to see in a fight where somebody got knocked out, because Xander Zayas went with, the most prideful, macho, selfish even approach he could have taken to this fight and stuck with it and just stuck behind it. No, I'm going to trade in the pocket. I don't care that this guy's hitting me harder than I'm hitting him. I don't care that uppercut really hurt. I don't care that this guy's hitting me to the kidney. I don't care that this guy's rocking me to the body. I'm just going to keep moving forward, taking the punishment, and trust that my power and that my hands are going to come through. And he was almost right. Like multiple times he was almost right. That was an unbelievable fight. I have never compared a fight to Hagler Hearns on this channel. This is the first fight I will ever compare that I've watched to Hagler Hearns on this channel. I People say that all the time. It drives me crazy that boxing commentators will pull Gotti Ward and Hagler Hearns out of thin air whenever two guys are just going blow for blow. You have to have some reverence and some respect for Hagler Hearns and how great of a fight that was in the history of combat sports, in the history of boxing, in the history of sports in general. What a great fight that was, and save it and not compare everything to Hagler Hearns, partially because Hagler Hearns was an undisputed title fight, as far as I remember, or at least an insanely high-level elite tier fight. I wouldn't really compare a fight to Hagler Hearns other than a fight like this, like a fight that's already, in a unified title fight, a fight that's unquestionably two of the elite fighters in the world at their weight class. Just saying, screw the whole defense thing. I mean, both of these guys could have cycled out and started outboxing at any point. I was screaming, honestly, for both fighters to be like, well, the smartest thing for them to do would be to move out. But you already knew by round 3 that wasn't the fight we were going to get. And round 3 was sort of the round 1 of Hagler Hearns. This fight had its round 3. Gotti Ward had round 9. This fight had round 3. That was an all-time great round. That was an all-time classic title fight. That was a fight that's certainly going to boost the stock of both men involved. And I was already a fan of Boots Ennis, but this pretty much sold me on him beyond just following him as an undefeated fighter, because I'll always follow a fighter who's undefeated, who's over a certain number of wins. I'm always going to follow them because that just, I think as fight fans, right, that and boxing fans, that's inherently interesting, a fighter with no losses. This is the fight that convinced me to really keep following Boots' fights after he loses that 0, because it shows that Boots is above all else. I mean, he's not really an entertainer above all else. He's a finisher and a knockout artist above all else. But to the fans, yeah, he's an entertainer above all else. Not in the volume punching way, but in the way that the fight's going to end and in the moments that you're going to remember. There aren't very many fighters better in the world than Boots Ennis. I'm going to keep my thoughts a little shorter this week. That's going to do it. I will have maybe a further video on who next for Boots Ennis. I think that Boots probably will just fight Josh Kelly next. I would obviously like to see him fight Fundora and become undisputed at this weight class, but I think there's multiple problems with that. Time passing by, Fundora moving up, Ennis also perhaps moving up, and just the landscape of boxing and just the landscape of the division changing. I kind of doubt we ever get an undisputed Ennis versus Fundora fight, as insanely great as that would be. I think Josh Kelly's probably next, and you also have Virgil Ortiz, who Ennis faced off with in the past as well. But yeah, like I said, that's going to do it for me, guys. Like and subscribe for more boxing content. I'll be back on the next one. Peace out.